This story is a work of fiction. Please consider carefully before listening. I moved into apartment Damolbite because it was cheap. That was the reason I told myself. The truth was simpler and worse. I had nowhere else to go. The building didn't look abandoned. That was the strange part. It stood among other apartment blocks, all of them similar in shape and color, but somehow different. The others felt lived in. This one felt paused, like a frame in a video that never advanced. 7 floors, yellowed concrete walls, balconies with rusted railings, windows that reflected the sky but never seemed to reveal what was inside. The sign near the entrance read, Harrow Heights, Building C. Some of the letters were missing. It looked like the sign had been repaired several times, but never correctly. I remember standing outside for a long moment before going in, my suitcase beside me, my phone clenched in my hand. I had the uncomfortable sensation that if I turned around and left, the building would somehow remember me. I laughed at myself. Buildings don't remember people. I was wrong. The leasing office was on the ground floor, squeezed between a locked maintenance room and a stairwell that smelled faintly of mold. The woman behind the desk was thin, pale, and smiling too much. "You're here for 317, she said before I could speak. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I replied. I called yesterday." She nodded. "You always do." That should have bothered me more than it did. She slid the key across the desk. Old-fashioned. Heavy. The kind of key that didn't belong to modern locks. "3rd floor," she said. "End of the hall." "Is there anything I should know?" I asked. Her smile tightened, just slightly. "About the building? About the apartment?" She tilted her head, considering. "It keeps good time," she said. I frowned. "What does that mean?" But she had already stood up, signaling the conversation was over. Apartment 317 was exactly where she said it would be. 3rd floor. End of the hall. The corridor stretched longer than it should have, the yellow lights overhead humming softly. Each door was identical. Dark wood, brass numbers, old peepholes. 317 sat alone at the far end, no neighboring doors on either side. That should have been impossible. I didn't think about it then. The key slid into the lock smoothly. Too smoothly, like the door had been waiting. Inside, the apartment was small but clean. 1 bedroom, a narrow kitchen, a bathroom with cracked tiles and a mirror that felt off somehow. The air smelled stale, but not unpleasant. The silence was immediate. No distant traffic, no voices, no hum of appliances from other units. It felt like the sound had been turned down. I dropped my suitcase, locked the door, and leaned against it, suddenly exhausted. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The first night passed without incident. No dreams, no noises, no interruptions. The second night was the same. By the 3rd day, I had started to relax. I unpacked, bought groceries, memorized the path from my apartment to the stairs. I noticed that I never seemed to run into other tenants, but I chalked that up to coincidence. Old buildings have odd schedules. On the 3rd night, I went to bed early. That was my mistake. I woke up without warning. No nightmare, no sound, just the sudden, overwhelming certainty that I was no longer alone. My eyes snapped open. The room was dark, the shapes of furniture barely visible. My heart was pounding, though I didn't know why. I reached for my phone. The lock screen lit up. 3:17 a.m. The numbers glowed red. Then I heard it. Tap. A pause. Tap. Tap. Coming from the front door. Not loud, not aggressive. Careful. Deliberate. I froze, listening. 3 taps total. Then silence. I held my breath, straining to hear footsteps retreating down the hall. Nothing. After a full minute passed, I told myself it was just a neighbor. Maybe someone got the wrong apartment. Maybe someone drunk and confused. I lay back down. That was when my phone vibrated. Unknown number. Open quote, "You're awake." Close quote. My stomach dropped. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. I hadn't given my number to anyone in the building. Another message arrived. Open quote. "I didn't mean to startle you." Close quote. My mouth went dry. Open quote. "Who is this?" Close quote. I typed, then deleted it, then typed it again. The reply came instantly. Open quote. "You already know." Close quote. The tapping returned. This time it sounded closer, not louder, clearer, like whoever was knocking had leaned in. Tap, tap, tap. My skin prickled. I slid out of bed and crept toward the door, every step careful. The floor didn't creak. The apartment remained silent, as if it was holding its breath. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Lights on, No shadows, no movement, yet the knocking continued. My phone buzzed again. Open quote, "You're standing by the door now," close quote. My heart slammed against my ribs. I backed away slowly, my mind racing. Open quote, "Stop, I'm calling the police," close quote. The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Open quote, "You won't," close quote. Open quote, "You never do," close quote. The tapping stopped, silence returned, heavier than before. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I told myself it had been stress, lack of sleep, a prank maybe. I checked my call history. The number was gone, no record of the messages. I laughed nervously and went to work. By the time I returned that evening, the fear had dulled. I went to bed. At 3:17 a.m., I woke up. Tap, tap, tap. The schedule had begun. At first, I tried to convince myself it was a coincidence. People are good at that. We take something impossible and shrink it down until it fits inside our understanding. We call it stress, fatigue, anxiety, a prank, anything but the truth. The second night after the knocking schedule began, I didn't go to bed. I sat on the edge of my mattress with the lights on, staring at my phone, watching the minutes crawl forward. Midnight passed, 1 a.m., then 2. My eyes burned. My thoughts slowed. I checked the time again, 3:16 a.m. I held my breath. For a moment, nothing happened. Then tap, just 1, not 3, a warning. My phone vibrated at the exact same moment. Open quote, "You're early tonight," close quote. I stood up so fast the chair tipped over behind me. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." Another message appeared. Open quote, "You stayed awake last time too," close quote. The knocking resumed. Tap, 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 perfectly timed, perfectly patient. I backed away from the door until my shoulders hit the wall. My mind raced through options, calling the police, screaming for help, breaking a window, but every idea died the moment it formed. Because deep down, I knew something was wrong. Not outside the apartment, inside me. The messages didn't stop that night. Open quote, "You don't remember the first time, do you?" Close quote. Open quote, "You were smaller then." Close quote. Open quote, "You used to count the seconds between knocks." Close quote. I didn't reply. I couldn't. The tapping continued for nearly 10 minutes before it finally stopped. When silence returned, it felt unnatural, like a held breath released too quickly. The next morning, I noticed something strange. There were faint marks on the inside of my door. Not scratches, not dents. Small, circular impressions. 3 of them, perfectly spaced, as if someone had knocked from the wrong side. I went to the leasing office that afternoon. The desk was empty. No woman, no paperwork, no sound. The office looked abandoned now. Dust on the counter, lights off, the chair slightly pulled back like someone had just stood up and never returned. I called out, "Hello?" My voice echoed faintly. No answer. On the desk sat a single sheet of paper. Apartment numbers, names, dates. I scanned the list until my stomach tightened. 317, occupied. Below it, written faintly in pencil, almost erased, returning. That night, I locked myself in the bathroom. It felt safer there. Smaller, fewer shadows. I sat on the floor with my back against the tub, staring at the mirror across from me. I don't know why I kept looking at it. At 3:17 a.m., my phone vibrated. Open quote, "You always hide in here." Close quote. I slowly raised my eyes. My reflection was already looking at me. Smiling. I wasn't. The knocking came from the bedroom door this time, not the front door. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was closer now, more intimate. I covered my ears, but it didn't help. I could feel the vibration through the floor, through my bones. Open quote, "Do you want me to stop?" Close quote. The message appeared slowly, letter by letter. My hands shook. Open quote, close quote. I didn't remember typing it. Open quote. "Then open the door," close quote. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the bathroom handle. My mind split between terror and a strange, growing familiarity. A memory surfaced, a hallway from my childhood home. Dark, too quiet. My bedroom door in front of me, my hand raised. Tap, tap, tap. I remembered the thrill, the control, pretending I wasn't there, pretending I wasn't me. When I finally left the bathroom, the apartment was silent. Too silent. No knocking, no messages, just the hum of the lights and my own breathing. I slept for 3 hours, dreamless. The days blurred together after that. I stopped going to work, stopped answering calls. Every night, the knocking came. Sometimes from the front door, sometimes from the bedroom, once from inside the walls. And every night, the messages grew more personal. Open quote, "You hated your name." Close quote. Open quote. You used to imagine someone else living your life. Close quote. Open quote. You wished you could step outside yourself. Close quote. I started noticing changes. My handwriting looked different. My voice sounded wrong when I spoke out loud. Sometimes, I would find my phone unlocked, messages typed but unsent. Open quote. I'm ready. Close quote. Open quote. Let me in. Close quote. I didn't remember writing them. On the 13th night, I answered the knocking. Not by opening the door, by knocking back. 3 taps, a pause, 3 more. The silence that followed felt satisfied. My phone buzzed. Open quote. Good, you remember now. Close quote. That night, I dreamed of standing outside apartment 317. I was knocking. Someone inside was breathing quietly, pretending not to exist. I smiled. When I woke up, the mirror was uncovered. I don't remember removing the towel. My reflection blinked first. I stopped trying to remember when it began. Memory stopped behaving like something linear. It folded in on itself, repeated, rewrote its own edges. Some mornings I woke up convinced I had lived in apartment 317 for years. Other times, I was certain I had only arrived the night before. Time didn't matter anymore. The knocking did. The 14th night was the first time there was no knock. I woke at 3:17 a.m., as always, eyes snapping open before my mind caught up. My heart was already racing, braced for the sound. Nothing came. No tapping. No vibration through the walls. No polite, patient rhythm. Just silence. It felt wrong, worse than fear. I sat up slowly, listening. The apartment hummed softly. The refrigerator, the lights, the faint vibration of pipes in the walls. Normal sounds, comforting sounds. But underneath them, there was something else. Breathing. Not mine. It came from somewhere near the door. My phone lay face down on the nightstand. I hadn't touched it. I knew that. And yet, when the screen lit up, there was already a message waiting. Open quote. You don't need the knocking anymore. Close quote. My throat tightened. Open quote. Why? Close quote. The word appeared on the screen before I realized I had typed it. The response came slowly. Open quote. Because you've been answering. Close quote. I stood up and walked toward the front door. Not carefully, not cautiously, with the strange calm of someone walking a path they had memorized long ago. The door looked different now, older. The wood was darker, the grain deeper, like it had absorbed years it hadn't had before. I placed my hand on it and felt warmth, a familiar warmth, like skin. Another message. Open quote. Do you remember the rules? Close quote. I frowned. Open quote. What rules? Close quote. A pause. Then, open quote. You always pretend to forget. Close quote. The hallway outside was empty when I opened the door. No surprise there. The lights buzzed softly, casting long shadows that stretched toward me, not away. The air smelled faintly of dust and something metallic. I stepped out. The door closed behind me on its own. Standing in the hallway, I noticed something I hadn't before. There were no other apartment doors. Where there should have been 300, 316, 318, 319. There was only mine. Repeated. Door after door after door, stretching down the corridor in both directions. Each one marked 317. Each one with faint circular impressions on the wood. 3 knocks. I heard footsteps then. Mine. But not synchronized with my movement. They echoed half a second too late. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. The leasing office lights were on. That shouldn't have been possible. But there it was, glowing warmly at the end of the hall like a memory made physical. I walked toward it, my steps guided by something that felt like recognition. The woman sat behind the desk, smiling. You're late, she said. For what? I asked. She tilted her head. For coming back. I looked down at the desk. The paper was there again. Apartment numbers, names, dates. Only now, the list was much longer. Dozens of entries. Hundreds. All different apartment numbers. All with the same note written beneath them. Returning, I followed the list down until my eyes stopped. 317. You, below it, in darker ink, inside. I don't understand, I said. The woman smiled wider. You never do the first time. Of how many times have I been here, I asked. She shrugged. Depends on how you count. Count what? Doors. The memory hit me then. Not a fragment, not a dream, a full recollection. I was a child again, standing in the hallway of my childhood home. The house was quiet, too quiet. My parents were asleep. The lights were off. My bedroom door was behind me. I didn't want to go back inside. I wanted to see what would happen if I didn't exist for a while. So I knocked. 3 times. Paused. 3 more. I remember holding my breath, heart pounding, waiting for myself to answer, waiting for something else to answer instead. "You learned early," the woman said softly. "Most don't." "What did I learn?" I whispered. She leaned forward. "That if you knock long enough, something always answers." The hallway shifted. The walls stretched, bent inward. Doors appeared and disappeared, flickering like bad frames in a broken video. I saw flashes of other apartments, other people, each one hearing the knocking, each one answering, each one becoming quieter afterward. "What happens to them?" I asked. The woman's smile faded. "They stay." "Inside?" "Inside," she repeated. "Just not where they started." I woke up back in apartment 317, or what I thought was apartment 317. The furniture was wrong, older, arranged differently. The air felt heavier, thicker, like it had been breathed too many times. The mirror in the bathroom was uncovered. I stepped toward it. My reflection stepped closer too. But it didn't stop when I did. It leaned forward, pressing its hand against the glass from the other side, smiling. "You knock beautifully now," it said. Its voice was my voice, only calmer. I stumbled backward. "No," I said. "You're not real." The reflection tilted its head. "That's what you used to say." "Used to? You don't anymore." The knocking returned. Not from the door. From inside my chest. A rhythmic pressure. Tap, tap, tap. My phone buzzed in my hand. Open quote, "It's your turn to wait." Close quote. I understood then. There had never been an intruder, never been a stranger. The knocking wasn't something trying to get in. It was something reminding me I had once been out. The last thing I remember clearly is standing by the door. My door, the one with my name on it. I raised my hand. 3 taps. Pause. 3 more. The door opened. They say apartment 317 is empty now. That's what the records show. But sometimes, at exactly 3:17 a.m., a tenant will wake up with the overwhelming feeling that they are being watched. They'll hear gentle knocking, polite, patient, and somewhere in the building, a door will smile. If you're listening to this late at night and you feel the urge to check your door, don't, because whatever answers learns your name, and it never forgets.